Hi. So I've been thinking a lot about Georgism and Ardentown and why I like to live in Ardentown. And of course, Georgism is important because it's the foundation for the existence of the Ardens. And it's allowed for the development of a great community, and it's really nice to live here. But I think for me, it's actually more than that. So for me, Georgism is an economic system, and I know we don't live like 100% in a Georgist way. It's just not possible in this world. People would have to stop charging us income tax and so on. But it is a system that recognizes the very fundamental importance of the land, and I think it's a system that eventually will have a much greater role to play. And when I say eventually, I mean pretty soon, because we can see that we have a lot of problems which our current system is unable to solve. So Henry George recognized that if you were a landowner, then you collected all the profits that came from the increase in value of your land. But you weren't the one necessarily who increased that land in value. So for instance, suppose you're in London and there's an area that needs a subway, doesn't have a subway, then it's not so valuable yet. It's not so easy to live there. But then eventually taxes from all over the country are invested in building a subway. Actually, they call it an underground. So these taxes come from all over the country, but the people who benefit are the people who actually live in the areas that are suddenly opened up by this subway line. And specifically, the value of these properties, the value of the land there, increases a large amount. So if you own that land, then the increase in value comes to you. But you weren't the one who built the subway line. In fact, the taxes from all over the country built that subway line. So it's the same. The land, the increase in value of the land is due to the community, but it's all captured by the landlord. So land is very, very fundamental. Think about the Native Americans when they were living here. To them, land wasn't an opportunity for economic exploitation, right? Or just even just economic activity. That's how we think of it. But to the Native Americans, they thought of it as something sacred. The land shaped them. They were part of nature. So they didn't have this whole idea of ownership of land. But it was taken away from them by the Europeans who came over thinking, I need land, I have to have land. I have no hope back at home, so I have to come over here and I have to be able to get some land, and then I can, I can make a living that way, and many of them got rich that way. But in doing so, they actually kicked out the Native Americans from their own land. And they bought it. Can you buy land? Native Americans never bought land. It just wasn't conceivable to them because they didn't think of it in that way. So the idea of buying land only turns up if you have a government, and if the government is prepared to protect your right to land and will give you a deed to the land. Right? These things all come with the way that we think about this economic system. But we can see that we've got many, many, many problems right now. So we have a huge inequality in this country. We have huge problems of pollution, exploitation of nature. We're in a huge extinction of species. All of these problems are really due to a lack of understanding of how to live in harmony with nature. So we have to, at some point, we have to get rid of our understanding of nature as something to be exploited just for our economic benefit. And to my mind, Georgism plays a very central role in this. It's a sort of compromise in a way, rather than all going back to not owning our land anymore. Then Georgism really offers the possibility of a land value tax, which means that somebody who does own land, as the value of the land goes up, then that person would pay a tax based on the value of that land, the increase in value. And that way the community would be compensated for the increase in value of the land, because the community is what caused the land to increase in value. So without that fundamental insight, we have big problems. And I would say the Ardens are almost the only place that is still at least trying to live in some way according to Georgist principles. That doesn't mean the Ardens are perfect. It certainly doesn't mean that we live 100% according to Georgist principles. But imagine if there was no community in the whole of America that was trying to live according to Georgist principles. Then it would be gone. The whole thinking would be gone. And there would be nobody talking about land value tax. So Georgism plays a very fundamental role and very important role. So in my mind, I think that this is a very important thing, and that's why I'm here. So yeah, I pay maybe more tax by paying a land value tax than I would if I was just, part of the county paying their taxes. But I accept it because it's a little thing that I can do to support a healthy vision of the future. And it gives me a foundation, a platform to go out there and talk about it and, suggest that the way that we are living has to change. So, of course, it's a bit of a problem. There's obviously sometimes some unfairness. Any sort of tax is going to be unfair. Income tax is unfair. According to Henry George, according to me, income tax is wrong because you worked, it's your income, you should keep it. But the person whose land rises in value, they didn't cause that rise in value. That wasn't due to solely their effort. That was due to the community too, mainly. So I was thinking also, today we have this huge inequality in, actually in most countries in the world. But specifically right now, a lot of it is due to, these internet companies, to social media, Facebook, Google, all these companies which are exploiting the internet. And they are using our information. So they are getting rich by using our information, by selling our information to each other, to companies who can then sort of advertise, pinpoint who they want to advertise to, and so on. In a way, information right now is playing the same role as land, because a few people are getting incredibly rich on using our information, but the information belongs to us. So there are proposals out there, that would pay us each time somebody used our information or somebody sold it. We would get a little bit, a penny or two here and there. But of course, some of the proposals are much more serious than a penny or two here and there. But it's the same idea, right? Land is always going to be important until people don't need to live anywhere anymore, right? Doesn't look like that's going to happen. Of course. So land is always going to be important. but it is still, you can see the parallel there. So I would be very unhappy if if we were to somehow not recognize the importance of Georgism. And I don't think that people in general feel like that. But sometimes we have to really think about what is Georgism, what are the things that are important in the way we live. Okay, it's just me thinking today.